If you were a fighter pilot in Korea, there was one thing that would make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and that was when one of your wingmen said, "MiGs!" Behind me is a MiG-15. This was the adversary that the F-86 and the F-9F Panthers were looking for throughout the Korean War. Quite often, they weren't necessarily flown by Korean pilots. Many of them were flown by Soviet World War II veterans, and the Soviets were well skilled in air-to-air combat. The aircraft behind me is a Grumman Hu-16 Albatros. This amphibian dates from about the late 40s, early 50s, and remained in service around the world until 1980. This one is painted in the markings of the United States Coast Guard, serving in Miami. This particular airframe has 80,000 hours of service on it. Albatrosses were used to recover pilots from about the time of the Korean War and through the time of the Vietnam War. Annually, in Las Vegas, Nevada, there's an annual Albatross fly-in for privately owned models. Jimmy Buffett owns an Albatross. The gentleman who owns the Red Bull Drink Company owns an Albatross. They're very popular in the Caribbean for short hops between islands, and they were always thought of as a rugged aircraft. This is the Douglas F-4D Skyray. It was a Navy and Marine Corps fighter aircraft designed in the late 50s, early 60s. And the design requirements were that the pilots had to respond to the sound of the horn and be at altitude and intercepting an aircraft within 5 minutes. This was the last jet fighter that Douglas built. And the tailless Delta design can be traced back to some early World War II German jet designs. You know, aircraft don't often arrive at a museum in pristine condition. Oftentimes they need to be restored so that they are representative of the aircraft that we see in our mind's eye. Behind me is an F-89 Scorpion, which was an interceptor in the late 50s, early 60s. This was the first jet fighter designed to carry a nuclear-tipped air-to-air missile. And the volunteers at the New England Air Museum are currently in the process of restoring it to its pristine condition. You're looking at one of my favorite aircraft of all time, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II. Originally designed as a carrier-based air defense interceptor. And it wasn't long after it entered service that the Air Force decided that they needed them too. This Phantom is painted in Air Force colors. The tail code marks it as an aircraft that was based at Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. The red star under the canopy marks it as a MiG killer. Phantoms were used throughout the Vietnam conflict for MiG kill sweeps, escorting F-105 Thunder Chiefs into the combat zone, and a number of Air Force aces flew the F-4 for both the Navy and the Air Force. Randy Cunningham and Willie Driscoll flew the F-4 for the Navy and were MiG killers. Robin Olds, Steve Ritchie, Chuck DeBellevaux were all Air Force aces, with the F-4 as their mount. The F-4 Phantom has been flown by a number of NATO allies and flown by air forces around the world. It's been flown by the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy. It's been flown by the Japanese, the Australians, the Israelis. They're flown in Iran. It's an amazing aircraft. And when you see one in life and you see how big they are it makes you wonder how they did the things they did. I'll tell you how they did it. Pure power. Today, during the videotaping of this episode of Day Trip to History, we've seen a number of aircraft built by the Republic Corporation. And behind me is the Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II, the cousin to the P-47 Thunderbolt, affectionately called the Warthog. The A-10 has an amazing story. The Air Force required a close air support tank killer for the battlefields of Europe. Faced with Soviet invasion by thousands of tanks, the A-10 was designed to counter that threat. And although the A-10 never went into combat in Europe, it is a combat veteran of both Gulf Wars. The A-10, with its 30mm GAU-8 gun housed in the nose, will shred armor. It's also been used as a close air support weapon. It's currently flying in Afghanistan in support of our troops on the ground. Multiple stations on the wing for loading ordnance. In this case, cluster bomb units. A-10s would fly in combat, carrying perhaps 2 sidewinders on the outside station for self-defense, and then rockets, bombs, guided munitions, and they stay very close to the guys on the ground. You know, there's a political story that goes along with the Republic A-10 Thunderbolt. The Air Force has been trying to get rid of these things for the longest time. Why? Well, it doesn't fly fast. It's not sexy. It's not the hot airplane that's going to get you the hot chicks. And yet, they're still in service. The first time they were saved was during Gulf War I, when Norman Schwarzkopf said, "I want A-10s, and I want them now." And he got them. The Air Force continues to try to get rid of the aircraft. In Desert Storm 2, they proved themselves once again. And in Afghanistan, after 9/11, the A-10 continues to support our troops on the ground and does so admirably. It's been updated with a glass cockpit display to bring it into the 21st century. And even though the Air Force is trying to get rid of it, it may be around for quite a long time. It continues to fly with Air National Guard units across the country. I hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of Day Trip to History. I know I've enjoyed videotaping it along with my cameraman Rick. I have to thank Executive Director Michael Speciale and Janice Winiger for their hospitality in allowing us to tour the facility today. For more information about the New England Air Museum, go to www.neam.org. It's an amazing website. You can learn a lot by going there. Thank you for watching. That's the end of this episode of Day Trip to History. Please remember, we're all living history right now. Behind me is a Lockheed TV-2 Sea Star, which is the Navy designation for essentially a T-33 shooting star. 2-seat trainer. You've seen it before. Let me start again. You've seen it before where, Bob? This is a Grumman E-1 tracer. This is essentially an early version of an AWACS aircraft. Grumman designed these aircraft based on the S2 tracker frame or the C1 tracer. Yeah. Trader. In 5, 4. You know, you at home can be an internet TV star. You know, you at home could be a cable access TV star. All you got to do is memorize the GD sign. Hey, I just noticed we're standing in front of the RB-57 Canberra. Here's your $50,000 softball question, Rick. What's the capital of Australia?
Sydney.
All right, here's your $100,000 softball question, Rick. We're standing in front of the RB-57 Canberra. What's the capital of Australia?
Canberra.
You got it.